Hello, everyone. So, we are recording this particular podcast at the end of the month, which means we are waiting for one certain thing to alleviate our current situation, and which would be the case for many, many people around the world, at least around the majority of the population, and that would be our paycheck. So, talking about paycheck and living paycheck to paycheck, living off of monthly salaries, we can comfortably place ourselves in what we call as middle class. So
Yeah, today we'll be discussing about middle class mentality. So, what is a middle class mentality? For all middle class, how many classes are there?
in a lower class, middle class, upper class the elites, lower class
Broad classification, four or five.
say three ne
Mm.
three would be the structured. The
But
lower class would involve poverty, impoverished,
below the poverty line,
or minimum wage,
Mm.
just above the poverty line, barely making ends meet, having to rely on every aid or every subsidy that the government gives or whoever can spare. That's, I feel like, at least to my the knowledge and to my understanding, that's what many people would refer to as lower class. And even a small thing, first of all, they would be incapable of expanding or growing without taking major
growing
risks.
physically or mentally,
Physically, mentally, fiscally.
because they struggle to even get a
Mm.
like 3 meals on their plate every day. So that is like poor class, you can say.
Mm.
Then we'll talk about upper class. So obviously,
Upper
who do
class
not
is direct opposite, maybe.
look after the
Yeah.
behind their shoulders all the time.
Mm.
So coming to middle class, in that itself, tiny nuances like lower middle class, middle class, upper middle class. So lower middle class is like you have 3 meals on your plate, and your daily routine will be okay. That's all. You can't think anything apart from that. Middle class, you'll be having a typical Splendor bike, Honda Activa. You'll be studying in a decent school, call it an ICSE school or whatever, CBSE. But your parents will be struggling to meet the required fee structure as well. But somehow you will manage. Upper middle class is where you have a car, call it having a car where you do not like
Rely on
struggling.
public transport.
Like you have a decent car like a Baleno or a City or a nice decent car, and not much of an EMI or something, and you lead your life smoothly. You take out your car during vacations, you can fuel up, you do not think about fuel money that much. So that is like, and an own house, not to worry, and a decent living space. So that is upper class. So what do we both come under?
Mm,
We can't reveal it come entirely, but based on the background you guys can see, or the pathetic piece of shitty notebook, or
yeah,
this
அது
one.
வந்து நம்ம authenticity. அது நம்ம கலாச்சாரம்.
We don't forget where we come from. But Kanye says we should forget anyways. So I think we will come under the strata where, like stratum where, from middle class to upper middle class maybe. It would give us a transitional stage, because we are the transitional markers here. So yes, very soon it will change. We'll update you. So yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10, we are, I don't know, 6.5 to 6.8 right now. 3 is poor class, and the middle class different classifications under 6, 7, above 7 upper class. So what is the mentality of middle class people? How do they live?
That is mainly what we wanted to talk about in this particular update or sitting. So yeah, I think even we are more qualified to talk about it because we ourselves are in that situation.
We
have been
recognize
in-
ourselves as middle class.
we have been in worse situations, we have been in better situations, but yeah, ultimately we have never tasted being impoverished or being luxurious or being rich. We have always come under that middle ground. So growing up, we have seen how that mentality shaped us and how it persisted with our family members, our parents, our siblings, our cousins, our parents, the siblings, whoever it may be. So, one major aspect is that there will always be a loop that the middle class person will be stuck in. So, that loop will be, in many cases, the circle of protection for them, more so. Because for them, being stuck in a loop ultimately means stability.
Comfort zone.
Yes. So for others, it may, that circle, if you draw a circle and you place the middle class person inside, that circle for them is the circle of protection which safeguards them from falling into poverty or falling into hard times. But for others, it looks like a comfort zone that they have chosen for themselves, and they are so afraid of coming out of it. And there is good reason to be afraid of it. There's It's not paranoia, it's not an illogical fear. Of course, if you try and you fail a little too much, you will hit rock bottom, and then those depending on you will be left alone. So there are the proper reasons, but yet still, whether or not the reason is the logical or illogical, we are ultimately stuck in a loop. At least those who tend to justify being middle class uh, get stuck in that loop. And talking about that loop in particular, it will be more so them finding a stable job, then them trying to make their ends meet with whatever stability that they have. And due to that, the ends being a little more excessive, not as in luxury or in excess or in grandeur, just the basic necessities in and of itself in many cases might be a little too much for them. So they'll have to depend solely on their stability, their main stable income, to um, you know satisfy whatever needs they may have, and then go back to the other same thing on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis, on a weekly basis, on how whatever basis that they may have. And the thing about that is, why we call it a loop is they can't get out of that or try something different, because even if they take a step out of that zone, they will be in a completely unstable position where it may not affect their the stable income. In many cases, it can affect their stable income, and it often involves taking a big leap of faith or big leap of trust, more like, in themselves, which is where the fear again sets in. Many people have failed before me. What if I fail like them? And then they step back into their comfort zone and they go about their daily lives, living the same routine that they have. So,
Speaking about loops, I feel like only a delusional beep family can actually break that loop. Beep. So, what are the real life scenarios? He gave the theory behind it. So, in real life scenario, how will it function? So, you're getting a paycheck today or tomorrow. Okay, you're getting a paycheck on July 1st. So, you're having an income of 50K. And how do you run the family? You segregate it for the groceries, for all the religious and spiritual purposes, all the fees, fuel, and for food and everything. So remaining what you have, barely few hundreds or thousands. So that's when the savings come. So how does a person in middle class think about saving? What do they think when they hear the word savings? I personally feel like they just think of a safe option like LIC or putting in a bank account, simple FD, or a post office account, or any government schemes or whatever. Even if they progress to a solid investment like gold, they won't purchase a gold bar or a coin. Bar they can't afford. A coin they don't consider it a right thing. They'll buy a chain or a ring or something, which is basically not useless, but compared to just keeping it inside of the drawer, it's better. But compared to the actual coins or something from investment per se, it's a bad decision. So why do they choose ornaments or actual investment in gold, like any gold schemes or like gold bees or something? Gold bees is online purchasing of gold, like just an online thing, like gold
Like a
bonds,
stock version of
like a stock
stock
version.
or a bond. Yeah, not getting into the details of those. So that pertains to how a middle class person thinks. No matter how much they are entrapped in their own
Society.
society or in their own um, cycle of despair, one thing, at least in the majority, of course, this is always about the majority of people. The majority of people have quite a big ego that isn't what they should be having in their current status. No matter how much they may be struggling, no matter how much they may be finding it hard to make their ends meet month to month, one thing they cannot let go is how the society, how their peers, how their extended family looks at them. No matter how much they may be struggling inside, instead of saving those few wastage charges or the making charges that will occur when you buy an ornament, instead of avoiding it and buying a coin or a bar, of course we are talking about middle class people, so coins, they will choose the former option because that is something they then can wear outside, they then can brandish, and then people around them will see, okay, they are of a particular the level, they're not struggling or they are prosperous. Somehow people want others to think that, making some justification that people shouldn't look down upon them or people shouldn't um, be disgusted by them or ridicule them, or for whatever reason it may be, thinking that those things actually have some tangible value. I mean, for any people who for anyone who has been humbled or who has gone through a rough patch and then come out of this societal or peer pressure, will understand that there is no tangible value unless and of course you're a media personality where your entire outward appearance, how you present yourself matters, and that alone brings you money, sure. But for the majority of people in the middle class, no, they're not doing anything. They're not putting themselves in the social media. They're not putting themselves on YouTube to make something, to get something out of it. They may put it on social media. They do, of course, put it on social media. That is also to get attention, but not to gain any monetary benefit, not to improve their situation, just to inflate their ego or to satisfy their ego.
Self-respect in front of colleagues and relatives.
Yeah. They call it self-respect, but we call it as we call it what for what
immature,
it is.
Imbecile act.
Yeah, immature, naive, narrow-minded ego is how I see it, and is of course how he sees it as well.
I feel like that is the defense mechanism or our defense mechanism. If you don't wear a new chain or a fancy earring to attend a marriage, they'll think you're broke, which in reality is true. But even they'll be broke. So in order to attend a program or an event, they wear a fancy earring so that others think they're doing well, which in reality they won't be doing well. Even the opposite person is not doing well, but just to get the overall scheme that everyone is doing well, or I have this and that, I'm not that broke like you, or you're richer than me, or whatever. We try to inflate our egos and not accept the reality, which leads us to a giant financial trap and falling into debts and getting loans, which is like an endless loop. So you can never really come out of it unless someone from your family moves out to the states. You move on from to abroad and they earn and send you money. You'll stay in the lower middle class. Then you might progress to middle class, the typical thing. And if it continues for 1 or 2 generations and you get a bonus, then you get a promotion, move on to upper middle class. By then, your grandfather would have started it from lower middle class and you would have progressed to upper middle class. That takes generations, but a single generation is not able to change that. So 3 generations takes about what, a century or so, 40 years. Almost you take 120 years to progress from this to that. I don't think even Russia took that much of time to progress.
Yeah, there are a lot of things to unpack. So maybe we can also talk about our own perspective. So our own journey more. Like we have also had our egos, and we obviously have had to undergo ego deaths in order to understand how it's really going to be. It's going to be as we envisioned after the particular time, but during that time period we have to humble ourselves. We have to focus on being logical and being rational instead of letting our ego run our lives.
For example, like yesterday he had an ego death. Basically, he could have got a 4K or 5,000 rupees worth Crocs, but he rather chose a decent sandal which was for 1,500 rupees, and he used the remaining money for something else like an investment. So yeah, but most people, typical middle class, they want to wear Crocs, which is actually a shitty thing from my perspective to be worn, but just because for the branding Crocs they wear. Whereas the poor class, they wear something called Crocs something, but the upper class, they wear elite brands. Only the middle class try to act like the upper class, which the upper class don't even give a dash about purchasing that. It is easy for them. Whereas you get the same comfort or even better comfort for a price which is decent, and it will last for several months or years, and you can use the remaining money for something else. You might have some torn socks or something, but the socks won't be visible for others. But the comfort it gives, your foot, it needs that, but you won't look at that perspective. All you need is the Crocs branding from a third person's point of view. So you indulge into that.
I think we can bet very easily on how many men, at least we can speak
So
for
that's a
men.
gender bias.
At least we can talk about ourselves. How many men in the middle class family or being in a middle class mindset will
Bro, Duke
wear
on
a
bro.
single underwear for 2 to 3 years on end, but
Not
will,
us.
yeah, we will, yeah, we
People who we know.
are like, based on our knowledge, based on our experiences, it's so rare for a middle class man to change his own underwear, but he will on the regular change or buy different clothings or outfits just to attend a function or go to work, or just hang out, or just whichever it shows to other people. That's what he will be buying on the regular.
Any example, like a person named X whose monthly salary is just 30,000 rupees has personally told Joshua that he is wearing torn underwears. So that person X has purchased a mobile for 90K for almost like 2 years of EMI or only.
That EMI, wow, yeah.
That
24 months.
Person X, address him by that. We can't reveal their identity.
Yeah, 24 months. For
revealing identity, you need to subscribe. I mean, pay premium price. 100 rupees.
24 months per month, it's not even like 1,000. It's 3.5 per month for 24 months. for this 80,000, some 90,000 for.
But that beep. But then
no, the other thing is he doesn't know. The thing is he bought an Android phone. The level of shallowness in that, I tried bringing sense to him. Thing is, he wants a cover with an Apple logo, and for that he's buying a different cover. He already has a cover, so he will buy a different cover with an Apple logo, and his ringtone is the Apple ringtone.
Android
80,000 rupees phone already.
80,000.
It's actually the flagship phone. Still, he'll be like, because the people look at
same Crocs concept.
People will see the logo, right?
Do those people fucking feed you, brother? No. Do they stitch your torn underwear? Or do they buy a diaper for your child? No, right? Then why do you strive to get a good name from their perspective? I feel like everyone does the same thing, and that's why it just keeps happening and happening, and the loop continues.
It is so widely accepted. So they speak about it with such dignity and such pride. No matter how much their little statement will be something like, no matter how much we struggle, we'll always be presentable. Like, why?
I mean,
What's
not
it?
entirely negative. These days, at present, out of 100, maybe 6 or 7 are actually changing. They're like, I don't care what others think. So some people are genuinely progressing. But compared to the remaining 94, these 6 are like just fractional in lakhs and hundreds, like thousands of people. So yeah, some people are genuinely changing and they are improving their life. Basically, 2 of us. So remaining 4 of us might be in the street like us. Apart from that, everyone is so concerned about what others are thinking. Even we haven't fully evolved in only in few things, only in this Crocs thing. But what about the shirt he wears to go for work? That is a Van Heusen or an Otto or a Peter England. He's not wearing what is it? Is Ramraj. Ramraj is a decent brand, but his colleagues don't wear that, so he wouldn't wear a Ramraj. Basically, under the tag, he's a youth. So
என்ன சொல்லி நிக்கிறீங்க?
உண்மைதான்.
நான் எப்போ அப்படி
Even if he doesn't do that personally, his dad, his father, wants his son to wear an equivalent brand which his colleagues wear. So
maybe, yeah. Actually, some brands quality differ ஆகும்.
இல்ல brand தானே முக்கியம்.
So yeah, there's certain word changes. I'm not saying you shouldn't look presentable, you should look like a beggar, or you should wear torn shoes, or you should let your the outward outfits be torn and literally be torn to shreds before you change. Nothing like that. You
Image
can be
body,
presentable.
சூட்ல இருக்கிற மாதிரி அந்த மாதிரி இருக்கிற மாதிரியும்.
You can be presentable. It's about the grandiosity. That 80,000 phone, which is then again being masked by a cover with an iPhone logo, so that people can look at it and say, "They see this person has an iPhone." That is grandiosity.
Focus more on functionality instead of
Yeah.
appearances. You have an EMI or debt of 1 lakh, and you have a marriage to attend, your own first circle's marriage. Buy a suit for 10k. I think it's decent. 10, but you would go to that particular shop where everyone is purchasing for 40k. You already have debt for 100k. Go for a 10k suit. That is decent. I'm not saying you should buy a suit for 1k from Gandhi Road or something. You can buy a 10k worth suit, or you can rent it for that event if you're not gonna continuously wear it. But you will be like, oh, that is a rented suit. My relatives will come to know that it's a rented suit, so I have to buy something on my own. He's buying in Raymond's, I can buy in Ramya's shop or something. So you'll go to Raymond's and spend extra 30k 40k, which you could have used to repay the debt. But after the event, you're gonna face the debt. They're gonna come knocking at your door, not society's or the other person's opposite person's door. So
one straight example would be we have seen a couple of marriages, and in all of those marriages, the woman will
explicitly show what?
Explicitly show the desire to buy a saree specifically from this particular area. அந்த ஏரியா பேர் வந்துச்சு,
காஞ்சிபுரம்.
காஞ்சிபுரம் பட்டு. காஞ்சிபுரம் பட்டு தான் வாங்கணும். சரி, ஓகே. ஃபார் த வெட்டிங் bride, okay, yeah, சரி, that is a one time event, hopefully. So she gets
one time disaster.
She gets a very properly made authentic silk saree, fine, but the whole family will go to Kanchipuram. They will get a saree, they will choose a saree for the bride, most probably not of her choice, and then they will start selecting sarees to give out for their extended family. Yeah, if you have the budget to spend for it, and then also live a normal life, live a proper life with your investments, savings, fine. In most cases, they won't have this settled, this being their family, their livelihood, their own expenses, general expenses settled, but will definitely indulge in buying sarees for their entire family, because if they don't do it, they will face shame. the people around them will gossip about them. I don't know how what
Just
exactly
because,
it says about the family, but they would rather have a family who gossips if there is any lack in grandiosity, rather than being alone and growing and actually spending their money in a rational manner. So that is the choice that they make.
so
Neera Soda.
same thing, like you purchase and give something to someone out of debt, and they have to repay the same thing, so even they indulge in a debt. So basically you are broke and they are broke, so one brokey talking with another brokey, so it becomes like a brokies club. I mean, we humans are deeply rooted in this from an evolutionary perspective. Like, takes even animals as such, they want to show that I've got a lots and lots of flesh or meat when they like meet together or something, or present even hunter gatherers when there is a occasion. uh, it's not like out of their own pocket, but they go to the extent where they will even die, but they'll catch extra few deers or something. And the recent centuries, like Egyptians or whoever, like whenever a king is going to meet another king or something, they take lots of jewels and stuff, but he's a king. But the same attenders or low class workers who are in the kingdom, they also try to enact the same thing, but not the actual diamond. That will be some dabra, but you can't afford the dabra also. But you'll be taking hundreds of dabras, putting masalas inside, just to show that you kept hundreds. And these days, at present, just to show that you have kept hundreds of plates for that event, they'll be taking photographs. You're taking hundreds of plates, but you can't afford that. Why are you presenting that? So how do we break this? It's hard to break.
Yeah. Why is it? We'll talk about why it's actually. We have already mentioned a lot of things. We'll specifically mention the main key factors that we believe are the main obstacles to breaking out of this cycle, breaking out of this loop, breaking out of this middle class mentality. I would start with what I already said: the fear of failure. And of course, I wanted to preface it with the notion that it is a rational fear. There is a lot of chance that one will fail when they take a risk, and it's always going to be there, no matter how proficient you are at one thing, no matter how good you are, even if you are the best in the world. There are a lot of external factors which can ruin your chances in making it big. So I would say fear, as I said earlier, is one major factor, if not the overarching factor in all those things. You'll always have anxiety, you'll always have fear when you try something new, when you're putting yourself out there. And if at all you put yourself out there and the only thing that is going to cost you is your own fear, respect, or your own perceived self respect, or your own livelihood, your own, as in your individual livelihood, fine. But then again, we are talking about a family. Most probably, if you're in a middle class, you'll most probably have a family. So you'll have mouths to feed. You'll have people depending on you. People who are beloved to you, your children, your wife, your parents, your siblings, whoever it may be. When those people are depending on you, you can't take a risks that can you can't take risks that can jeopardize their normal livelihood. What can a person, or what can a child who's just going to their school, who's just having a normal day at school, going to understand if you suddenly tell them
You lost your house.
you lost your house, or you lost all your money trying something new or trying something risky in order to get out of us, but it backfired. Now you're going to have to go to a government school,
வெள்ளூர்
something
கிச்சனில்
like that.
சாப்பிட்றதுக்கும் அம்மா உணவகத்தில் சாப்பிட்றதுக்கும்.
Ah, what what can a father explain to his daughter or son about the changes that can happen, the drastic changes that can happen when a plan backfires, when a risk backfires? So yeah, that is one major thing. And the second we have explained in detail, which is the grandiosity factor. Even if everything is stable, and that is somehow ironic, people would rather take loans, take debts, take risks to gain some funds just to satisfy the ego, satisfy the perception of the society, rather than using that same method to try to get out of this circle, to try to get out of their middle class trap. That is ironic, but yeah, still, that is one major, second major reason, grandiosity. வேற என்ன?
So maybe we'll talk about how to escape this or break the loop in a separate episode because it is crucial information. So yeah, we'll talk about how to
the
break
nuances of why people get stuck in a middle class family can be individual as well. Broadly, we talked about two major factors. There can be other personal individual factors, but nonetheless, getting out of the middle class mentality, getting out of this loop, more or less entails a particular way.
We're talking about an ideal or a hypothetical, not an hypothetical, theory based thing. There might be drawbacks, like you might lose your dad or your mother or your sibling to cancer, or your house might burn down, and your evolution into the middle class or upper middle class would fall back to poor class again. So excluding those circumstances, how if no tragedy happens, basically without a tragedy, if you lead your life in a straight path just by indulging into useless or meaningless things from society's perspective, then we'll actually talk about those things, like that particular journey or life, how you can come out of it, because that is the majority of thing. So 90% of the time, it's not like you're gonna have a tragedy. It's gonna happen rarely. To only, like, out of 1,000, only 10 people suffer from an actual tragedy. So without that, the remaining 990, they go into the worldly things, and like, for as we spoke about all those things. So for the remaining 990 perspective, we'll talk about breaking the loop.
One other thing I would like to add is the tragedy happening. So the perceived idea, I feel like stability in and of itself is an illusion. It is only stability because you haven't faced any hardships yet. If a person who's earning 50K and saving thousands or maybe even 5,000 a month, he can't do anything but take a loan once he is met with a tragedy, once the father or somebody beloved meets with a tragedy, once something sudden happens, or even if the global economy changes, he can't do anything about it. He will have to just whine and maybe write a petition that the salary must be hiked in order to meet his the requirements, or nothing, or else nothing can be done. So even this stability in and of itself is an illusion of comfort that people have built around themselves. So ultimately, there is no rhyme or reason to be in the middle class state. And so the only other choice is to break out of it. In that order, we'll talk about how to break out of it, or at least to us, how we are trying to break out of it in a separate sitting, because that is, again, as he said, crucial information, and it will take a long time to explain in detail. So yeah,
breaking the loop mari potre. So see you guys in the next episode. Ciao.